What is up, y'all? Welcome on back to another review from the 2 Game Podcast. I am finally able to give a review for Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It clocked in at 46 hours. There were some things in the post game that I did not tackle, but mainly because I have to go tackle some other shit in terms of the podcast. But I really wanted to give you my overall thoughts on Clair Obscur Expedition 33 because this game deserves to be played. It deserves to be talked about. I remember having an episode with Chris where we saw this trailer and then we were both like, this game looks like, if it is as good as what we are seeing right now, in terms of turn-based RPGs, it definitely has that potential to be one of the best of all time, just from the look of it and just from the trailer. And I am very happy to report that this game is as advertised. This is one of my favorite games of all time. So with that being said, I want to give you a full-on review of this game. I will be talking full spoilers for this game. So if you have not played it, you plan on doing that, this is where you stop and then come back once you have played the game. 100% do not be spoiled. 100% go play this right now. I'm just telling you right now, this game is an all-timer. But if you're one of those people that doesn't really give a shit about spoilers, by all means, continue on forward. Now, I will be getting to a section for the story and the characters, and I will be briefly giving you my overall thoughts on those sections of the game. But I would love to save this for another time. I would really love to dive into the story and the characters with Chris whenever he decides or is able to finish the game. So I'm going to be hitting the highlights of the story and the characters. I'm going to be diving into the story a little bit, but I'm going to be focusing on performance and the gameplay overall for this review. So again, full spoilers from this point forward. But let's start off with the performance of Clair Obscur 33. Graphically, it looks awesome. I think the art design really lends a hand to making it look gorgeous. There were so many times that once I entered a biome, I just went into an open area and I really just tried to admire the world that they created. I would go to the edge of a cliff and I would just stand there and just from left to right, I would just look at the background, look at the world, just truly incredible graphics. And again, the art design really helps with that a lot. Every biome looks absolutely incredible. Flying waters, and then the snow region with Monaco's train station, and then Serene. Like, those are just some of the highlights to me. In terms of like the main storyline biomes, those are just some of the highlights. They're all great, but those are really the ones that stood out to me, especially Flying Waters. When you go in there for the first time and you're walking through water, it's crazy visuals. And I loved what they were doing there from an artistic standpoint, and it just looks great overall. And a few of the side zones are fairly large areas. Frozen Hearts is the one that kind of comes to mind for me that I really loved. And it's not a post-game zone. It's like right there before the end game where you go fight the final boss, Renoir. And I did a lot of my leveling up right there to try to get XP and try to get a feel for the combat a little bit more before I go fight the final boss. But I really love Frozen Hearts. I think the visuals of that biome, really great. I think they have some great enemy variety in there. You really have to pay attention to the enemies there where you're having to parry them. And there's even a part right there where it's like a mini game of sorts. It's a parry boss. And it's just constant parrying. And that's all you do is just parry this. And if you get one parry wrong, you lose the fight. And I really like that because it gives you training. It's a little skill-based check for the parry system. And if you can do that one, you can do the entire zone and you can do pretty much the entire game. But we'll get into parrying in just a few minutes. And while there are a few fairly large areas like the Frozen Hearts, there are some that give you that old school JRPG look, like old school Final Fantasy, where the characters are like just miniatures moving in like the steel background. It's a little hard to see, but I do like that contrast of all the different areas. But graphically, all of this looks really great. Now, there is a lot of pop-in when you're moving through the overworld, going from biome to biome. It's most specifically and the worst when you are flying. The swimming is not too bad, but I was getting some pop-in with the swimming. Obviously, if you're walking through it, it's not that bad. If you are a fan of Pokemon games, especially the new ones, you are going to be in for a treat because there is a shit ton of pop in here. As far as frame rates and like how it actually performs in combat, never really had an issue. I did play the entire game on performance mode, so I never really had an issue with the combat or it lagging, frame rate drops. Never had any of that. It was mainly just pop in was the big graphic issue that I had throughout the game, which that doesn't really bother me overall. Like I'm not gonna knock a game for that. It has such a vast overworld and it's just intricately designed that I'm gonna let that pass. But yeah, performance wise, I think the game is really great. So moving on to the gameplay, this is the bread and butter. This is where the game is going to make or break you on the fact that if you like the turn-based quick time event action that they have, it's going to determine whether you like this game or not. Some people get turned off by it. I absolutely loved it. It was such a breath of fresh air to play this combat style where not only do you have the parrying and the dodging, but you also have the quick time events. You also have the strategy behind it. And there's just so much to talk about with the combat. So this is going to make up a bulk of this episode. It takes a little while to get the hang of it. It took me several hours to really become comfortable with dodging and parrying, which is kind of where I want to start off with first. If you go on TikTok, Facebook, whatever, a lot of people are going to say things about the parrying and the dodging, where you're going to get a lot of different opinions on the parrying and the dodging. You're going to get people that say the parrying is too hard and that they can't parry anything, so they just dodge everything. And then you're going to get people that says, well, that sounds like a skill issue to me, so maybe you should just get good. And it's kind of a toxic little fan base that we're building here. But really, that's just gamers in general. Like, people just can't build up other gamers in this community. As soon as someone is not able to do something, we're here to just tear them down, which I definitely don't agree. It takes a lot of practice to get the parrying and the dodging down. The dodging is much easier. So if you're playing through this game and you're having a hard time, just dodge. All right. So because the dodging is definitely easier, the window time is much larger. But if you can perfect dodge an enemy, then you can definitely parry that enemy too, which kind of makes me think of dodgeball. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. It's very similar to that. So if I wasn't getting the parry window down on an enemy, I would just start dodging. And that's when I would try to learn the movesets of the enemies. I always tried parrying first, but if I was just getting my shit wrecked, I would stop and just try dodging shit, trying to learn those parry windows a little bit more. But the parrying and the dodging is essential to the gameplay. Most games, I like to brute force my way through the game. I'm not a parry kind of guy, but the parry system here, so engaging, fulfilling, it's addicting, especially with the quick time events kind of thrown in there. And once you get to the end game, it's even more satisfying to parry those enemies because you just do so much more damage at that point. Like when I had Mael at the very end and you get the little Pictos to be able to do over 10,000 damage, that's when I just started wrecking folks with and it became very satisfying. But with this game is no different than like a Souls game or anything like that, where they want to make sure that you are keeping up with your skills throughout the game. There are what I like to call skill check bosses throughout the region. And these are bosses that are strictly there to make sure you know how to parry. Sprong comes to mind. The mimes are there to kind of, the mimes, I loved fighting the mimes. I know that when the game first came out that a lot of people were kind of bitching about the mimes, but personally, I had no issue with them. I loved fighting those damn things. Now, the little, I don't even know if I would call it a skill check boss of sort. It's little enemies found throughout the biomes, and they're called Patanks. Those to me were super aggravating. I liked the normal ones. If you got to the one where you had to shoot the weakness and then you had to follow the light and then they made you dizzy, like that to me was super fucking aggravating. And it got to the point where if I saw one, I just avoided it. But like the basic patanks, yeah, those were fun. It involves a little bit of strategy in there where you're having to, if you don't parry them, they're going to escape even quicker, but it's really trying to dish out the most amount of damage as quickly as possible. So it definitely helped me in terms of like building my strategies a little bit more, of trying to race against the clock per se, to defeat the patanks. So I like the base ones. I didn't really like the ones that were different with the patanks. But let me know down in the comments what you thought about those. I just felt like they were tedious more than anything. And I don't feel like you got a whole lot as a reward of beating those patanks. But the mimes themselves, so much fun. And then if you find the area where it has 2 mimes at once, bro, be so fucking for real. Okay? Like 1 was tough. You give me 2, but again, those are the skill check bosses that I'm kind of referring to. And as tedious as it can be, you can just go to a different part of the map and level up and then come back and then fight those. It has like that Elden Ring feel to it where you could just go do something differently and then come back and just wipe the floor with that boss. And that's just one of the great things about this game. Just go do something else. You don't have to do this. You can go to a different area, level up, and have fun while you're doing it. It's not like you're going to a part of the game that sucks. Like the entire game is great. So I really appreciate the skill check bosses here. Just it keeps you going. It keeps that momentum going forward as you're pushing through this game. And then just in terms of like bosses, there are just so many of those optional bosses throughout the world. And you will stumble upon them. Like you look at one, you're like, that's a side boss. I think I could take them. But then you end up fighting the boss plus like 2 others. And it's just crazy variety from beginning to end. They don't give you the same boss every single time, which I really appreciate because it doesn't become stagnant. It doesn't become stale throughout the game. It feels fresh with every single fight. The moment-to-moment combat and the skills, like the actual attacking of the combat, guys, it's so fucking good. If you don't go headfirst into this and try to learn the movesets and try to build synergies within those movesets of not just one character, but all of the characters. If you have Verso who marks enemies, you can then deal more damage on those marked enemies. So maybe you have like Mael come in right after him, who has an attack that deals more damage on top of a marked enemy. And then you can kind of stack those synergies on top of each other and really dish out some serious damage. And if you don't really dive headfirst into that, you're not going to really get much out of this game other than just the basic, okay, I'm just attacking and dodging, and then that's it. I feel like your experience will be vastly different if you are completely invested in trying to build those synergies between your team, not just one character. And there are several possibilities of making an OP team. I mean, you talk to anybody, their combination of the party members are different from each other. And then not only do you have the different combinations of the party members, but you have the different movesets. You have the different builds that you can do. You have fire builds, lightning builds, and all of that can just be stacked on top of each other to not only dish out more damage, but give you more variety in the combat and make it more fun. And by the way, if you're sitting there and you're not trying to build synergy within your team or just one character in general, like you're missing out on like this orgasmic feeling that if you do that, I'm telling you, your world will feel differently. I love it when I get that orgasmic feeling when a fight comes together. Shout out to that. But you have to commit to not only taking your time throughout the game and really soaking in everything that the game has to offer, but figuring out what works best for you with your playstyle. Again, I'm the type of guy that likes to go in head first. I've never been the type of player that likes to status buff other enemies or try to play defense. Going back to my Pokemon days, I was never a guy that would do that. I'm really just brute force. I'm just going to pound you into the sand as quickly as possible. And then, yeah, of course, I'll have maybe one character that'll heal and all that. But for the most part, I'm a brute force kind of player. That's my play style. And if that's your play style, you can 100% play the game like that. The great thing about some of the skills in the game, a lot of those skills give you debuffs on enemies. So it's not like you have to commit one specific skill slot to a debuff, because you could just have another skill in there that can do the exact same thing while also dealing damage. So this game just gives you an unbelievable amount of variety when it comes to the combat. If I had to say it and try to be I don't want to over exaggerate things, but I think you could put this in a conversation for best combat systems of all time. It is easily top 10. You can put it maybe in top 5. This was some of the most engaging combat and gameplay that I have ever played. I know that there are gamers out there and people on social media claiming this is the greatest game of all time and so on and so forth. I don't know if it's the greatest game of all time. Is it in my top 10 favorite games of all time? Yes. But the combat system, taking everything away from it, the combat system has got to be in the conversation of the greatest of all time. Like, if the combat is something that is stirring you away, if the overall turn-based aspect of it is turning you away, give it a shot. Play this game, give it a shot, because it is the most engaging combat I have ever played. I would put it there as top 5. Though the one that comes to mind that, like, off the top of my head in terms of combat, Xenoblade comes to mind, Horizon Forbidden West comes to mind as some of the most engaging combat. Top 5 all time for me personally. And again, there's just so much variety with it that it just never becomes boring. You will spend a lot of time just dishing out points in your attribute menu and your skills and finding out your Pictos, and just again, so many possibilities, and it just creates this insane amount of replay value, because you may not have the same experience twice. And I'm not talking in terms of like story elements. I'm talking about combat. For the most part, the game is going to play out the exact same way. Your choices really don't affect the overall story. I say that, but the game ends with a choice. But like, you doing something at the very beginning of the game doesn't affect something that happens later on in the game, is kind of what I'm getting at. But the replay value of the combat itself, I can't overstate it enough. So just go and be prepared that if you're going to dive headfirst into this game, you're going to be spending a lot of time trying to min-max everything. And speaking of min-max, we're going to talk about Pictos a little bit, because it took me a little while to get the hang of the Pictos. You find Pictos throughout the game. These are kind of like your stat boost with passive skills. Think of Hollow Knight or even Ori and like the Will-o'-the-Wisp. Those are like the charms in those games. It's similar to that, where it gives you a passive ability and it gives you a stat boost as well. So you win 4 fights. If you attach that Pictos to a character, you can learn that passive ability. And it goes into a menu, and you can just pick out which of those you want attached to each character. And to attach them to your character, you have to spend Lumina points, which you find throughout the world. Again, that just gives you a lot of free reign to not only create the team that you want, but create the builds that you want. Now, kind of going back to my brute force style of gameplay, I really tried to use Pictos or Luminas to really enhance that playstyle. So I'm not a guy that really loves to have that one character that just strictly heals and they don't do anything, because I feel like I'm wasting time in a battle by not attacking the opponent. So what I would do is I would attach a Lumina or Pictos, and I would deal more damage or I would take less damage, but I couldn't be healed ever. So I would attach those, deal more damage, take less damage, and then I would also attach some that would give me stat boost on parrying or dodging, Like I would get more AP to do more skills. That's kind of the playstyle that I went for in my game. And it's a circle. It never ends. So I absolutely loved the mechanic of the Pictos and the Luminas. You're going to spend hours just applying that stuff and spending those Lumina points, getting those passive abilities attached to your character. It's really important for the builds and the min-maxing of your character for you to dive into that. With that being said, I want to talk about the UI and the menus here for just a second. The UI and the menu for the Pictos, I don't know if it can be better. You can organize those to your favorites. You can organize those Pictos and those Luminas to like higher levels, higher points. You can also organize it by like speed and attack and stuff like that. I get that. But to me, it is a convoluted mess at times because they put it all on one screen and it's just so many words. It's just so much going on at one time that it gets a little confusing. And the game really doesn't do a great job of explaining Luminas and Pictos in general. So there is some times that you're going to be confused, like especially when you get towards the end of the game, when you have all these Pictos and then you have all of those passive abilities that you can attach to your characters. It's overwhelming. Like my OCD kind of freaks the fuck out when I go through those menus. And it's funny because the rest of the game has very minimal with the menus. Like the overworld doesn't have a mini map or anything like that, which is going to be the next thing that I dive into. I just think they could have done a better job with the Pictos or the Luminas and made it not look so confusing. Now, with that being said, you can organize all that, which is fine, and I had to do that a lot, but it still kind of made me freak the fuck out with the OCD a little bit. I really wish they would have had build sets, presets for your builds. Like, oh, I'm going into this ice zone. Well, I'm going to change all of my people to a fire build. Like, I think if they would have had preset builds for that, that would have made swapping over so easy, because a lot of the times I would have the same Pictos on every single character, and just going into a different zone, I would have to take some off and apply them. I wish that I had a preset build for all of my characters. I would have spent an hour just trying to build those out to save time in the future. And then with the menus itself, and you're spending your Lumina points or attaching the Pictos. The Pictos is a little bit easier. I think they may have patched this like later on, but it's a little bit difficult. Once you figure out like which ones you have attached to you, it's a little bit easier and you kind of recognize it for the rest of the game. But early on, it's kind of difficult to, okay, is this one attached to my character or not? So I would have to reset all of my Lumina points and then just start over from the very beginning and attach all of them, because I just got a little confused by what was attached and what wasn't. But that was like towards like the first third of the game. Once you got past that and you recognized what was attached and what wasn't, it made it a little bit easier. But again, you're going through it and you're taking some off and applying some different Luminas for certain areas. You kind of forget which ones you have and which ones you don't have, and like what fits that build that you previously had. So you're having to go through there and trying to pick out which one you don't need anymore. It's a convoluted mess. So I think they could have done a little bit better job of the menus with the Pictos. Now, on the flip side of things, you have your weapons, which I think they do a great job of the weapons and giving you different weapon skills. My thing is, and I think some of those passive abilities with your weapons were really great, and some of them made your character OP. Like Mael's best weapon, which is Medallium. I'm probably saying that wrong, but that weapon you can find super early on in the game. Like I used that weapon the rest of the game and I just built it up. And yeah, it may not have the damage output that some of her other weapons have, but it puts you in virtuose stance and you're dealing 200% damage right off the bat. And you can combine that with a lot of different things. Again, that goes back to the min-maxing and synergizing your team. But I just think the weapons are really great. I loved getting a new weapon. And then if you find another weapon, it'll upgrade it. And speaking of which, this was something that I really loved about the menu for the weapons. When you get a weapon, you keep that weapon. You have a list for each character of their weapons. When you get that weapon again later in the game, it doesn't give you 2 of those weapons in the menu. All it does is upgrade your weapon to the level of the new one that you found. I really fucking appreciate that, because there are some games out there where you will have an inventory of weapons and it'll be the same weapon like 5 times. One will be more powerful, and then you have to go in there and fucking delete one and then keep one. This one does it for you. I really appreciated the quality of life improvement here, where it just automatically upgraded. And it did that for all the Pictos as well. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about in terms of the gameplay is really the maps and the overworld and the fast travel. I really enjoyed the different style maps that we got here. You have the overworld with all the biomes that you can go into, and that reminds me of like the paintings in like Super Mario 64, where you can just jump into the painting, go into that world. It's very similar to that. And when you're traveling throughout the overworld, it gives you the name of that biome, and then you can enter into that biome. It reminds me of Super Mario 64 with the paintings. You can pick one and just jump right into it. And the game does tell you if that area is a danger or not, if you need to be leveled up more to tackle that on. So I do like that. It does get to the point where a lot of the biomes, a lot of the side zones are left for the in-game and post-game. So when you start off the game, you are in a biome already. And then once you leave that biome, you're into the overworld, which threw me off at first, because you can go to camp while in the overworld, which is where a lot of the character development, a lot of the character interactions occur. That's also where you can upgrade your weapons, upgrade your Lumina points, and really kind of flesh out the characters a little bit more is when you're at camp. But you can only do that either A, in between story moments, or B, when you're in the overworld. And I don't think that I utilized the camp feature as much as I should have at the very beginning of the game. I wish I would have jumped into that a little bit more, but the game doesn't specifically tell you to do that, which is fine, because I do like the exploration of games and not being handheld throughout the adventure. So you have the overworld where you're kind of a miniature with a vast world. And again, that was just different to see that. At first, threw me off, but once you get used to it, you don't even think twice about it. And then not only do you have the overworld, you have the regular biomes, which are the big open zones, and then you have the little biomes that I mentioned earlier, where you walk in and it's a preset background, and you're just a miniature walking across that steel frame. And those were nice. Those are mostly areas with like item upgrades more than anything. I didn't hate them. I didn't like them either, but it was a nice little throwback to some of the old JRPG games out there. And now I want to talk about the maps for just a second, because I think a lot of people are talking shit about this or not talking shit about this on the internet. So I kind of want to give you my thoughts on the maps overall. I get what they're going for here with there not being any maps in the biomes. They want you to feel like a legit expeditioner. They want you to feel like the characters, where they don't have maps, so they don't know what's going on. This land is all foreign to them. I get that, and that's fine. Don't let me see a map beforehand. Let me go into this area fresh, not knowing what's going on or where anything is. Let me explore that area to like 80% or something along those lines, and then let me unlock the map at that point. Let me, I don't know, put pieces of a puzzle together through the journals. There are journals throughout each biome. Let me find those journals. Let me find little collectible maps, and it's a piece to a puzzle. Let me do that, and then towards the end, I can piece that all together. Because I do find that the Dark Souls and From Software fan in me, I have to look and go see everything. I want to find all the items. I want to find all the collectibles, etc., etc. So it gives me a little bit of anxiety when I don't realize if I missed an area or not. I'm not saying that you have to put every little secret hidden on this map. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, I want to be able to explore all of the biome, mainly because I love this game so much. I want all of it. I want to consume everything the game has to offer. So I personally feel that if they would have added little puzzle pieces for a map, or even a map in a hidden journal, maybe towards the end of the zone. Oh, there's a map right here. Oh, that reveals everything. And there's a zone back here that I completely fucking missed, because the areas become kind of samey. While the biomes are gorgeous to look at, it's very easy to get lost and turn around in a lot of these biomes because the environments look a little samey. So again, it gets a little confusing, and I wish we had a map towards the end to really help us navigate this, because I personally feel like, and this could be part of the story, I feel like if expeditioners were there beforehand, they're not only writing journals about what they're going through, but they're also building maps for future expeditions to kill the Paintress. It's just a lot of times I got turned around, and I want to say it was like the Forgotten Battlefield, which was really bad. I would look at one thing, and I'm like, did I already go through here? And then you would start going through it, and then it's the very fucking beginning of that biome, and you're like, God damn it, dude. I have to go all the way back now. It's just a little confusing at times. So I would have really appreciated maps, but don't give it to me right off the bat. I'm not asking to be handheld through this adventure. Let me get to the very end. Let me get, I don't know, maybe even if I beat the boss, give it to me then. And then as a reward, I can go back through the level. Not only am I leveling up at that point, but I can find all the secrets. So just a little bit of an issue that I had with maps or not having the maps. And with all that being said, I need to talk about fast travel for a second. The fast travel within the biome itself and then the expedition flags, they're great. Plenty of flags for sure, although I do wish that they would have had flags closer to like the entrances and the exits to make it a little bit easier, because I spent a lot of time just speed running through an area because the flag is way off from the entrance. So I wish that once you enter, there's a flag right the fuck there, so that when I speed travel throughout the biome and it's time to exit or go through the entrance again, I can just fast travel to that first flag, and then the exit is right the fuck there. I just had a little bit of an issue with that. It's just kind of a quality of life thing that I wish the game would introduce. But I need fast travel for the overworld. A lot of my time was wasted on flying or swimming, or especially at the very beginning of the game, just running throughout this overworld, that I felt like I lost a lot of time. Like, I just want to be able to fast travel to certain points in the map. I would be totally down for like a biome checklist that you go through and you can travel to that biome maybe once you beat it. Like, I'd be down for that. Like, once you beat it, complete it, 100% it, it's added to your fast travel log. I would even be okay with like specific points on the overworld map that you click on that and it sends you to like this generic spot right in the middle. I'd be okay with that. But I just need that quality of life improvement with the fast travel, because I don't have a ton of time to play these games in general. So when I'm wasting a lot of time just running from point A to point B, I know at one point you get a skill, and it is to break like the rocks in the game. I wanted to go back the previous zone where it had a lot of that stuff that I couldn't access, and I had to run not only through the overworld, but then I had to go through the biome, and it just made it very time consuming for me. But with that all being said, I did find a lot of the hidden things in the overworld because of this, so it's kind of a catch-22. Like, there were some interesting aspects. Like, there's a Patank on one spot of the map that I never would have saw if I didn't like fly to that area, land, and then see it. So I get it. The exploration aspect gets ruined a little bit if you're fast traveling all the time, but I need a little, like, give me the option of it, okay? That's all I want. And now it's time to dive into the story and the characters. I'm going to give you the highlights of some of the best moments that I really loved in the story and some of my favorite characters for sure. But in terms of diving into it full on 100%, I might say that for a different episode. So we're going to start off with the story. Legit one of the best stories that I've ever played in a video game, period. The moment they wash up on the shore where they're trying to go kill the Paintress, and it's right after they leave the expedition, and one of the expeditioners sees a survivor and he's old, and they're like, oh my God, you're old. And it's Renoir, and he just fucking devastates all the expeditioners, kills the dude. It was one of those moments I was not even expecting it, and it threw me off. And once the moment happened, I just sat there and I was like, what the fuck just happened? What is this game even? You know, this dude just killed everybody, and I'm supposed to go up against this guy? I'm fucked. And then you have the death of Gustav, which absolutely fucking broke me. There was probably about 3 or 4 days after that scene and that point in the story that I was devastated. I was I don't want to say depressed. That's a little bit strong of a word, but I was definitely down. Like, they just killed off one of the great characters in the game, which the balls that they had to actually do that is just fantastic, because you are introduced to this game as Gustav. Like, that's who you're supposed to be throughout the entire game. And his relationship with Mael is so endearing. It's so damn good. It's like anytime that they would interact with each other, I was glued to the screen. And the moment he dies right in front of her, nonetheless, was absolutely heartbreaking. And it was one of those moments, as soon as it ends, I was like, what happened? Is he really dead? I couldn't believe it. The balls that they had to kill off the main character in a video game, the character that you are supposed to be in this story, absolutely fucking incredible. And it was a moment that I really didn't anticipate. And I hate the trolls out there on like TikTok and Facebook, Twitter, whatever, because a lot of people are like, his build becomes pretty shit in Act 2 and 3. And you're like, you're a fucking dick, okay? Because I really thought Gustav was just going to be one of my characters that like just wasn't strong. I just wasn't going to use him. So I didn't get spoiled on his death at all. And I think that might have made that moment worse for me personally, because I was expecting him to be there for the rest of the game, because everybody was talking about how he kind of gets passed on by the other characters in terms of being a good combat style character, where they were bragging about other characters passing him up in terms of like the combat. So I was expecting him to be in Acts 2 and 3 just from that. So y'all fucked me. But also you made that moment a little bit more impactful, I think, because I wasn't expecting it whatsoever. Now, to talk about the ending, I really need to talk about the characters first. So overall, story, one of the best of all time. I could not wait to get to a story moment. And this game was really great at, and I put it up there with like Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I've always said, if you've been following the channel for any length of time, I've always said the highlight of that game was the fact that when I was in combat, I was wanting to go back to the school and try to go through those moments with my characters, my teammates, and really expand on those characters and learn more about them. And then vice versa. When I was at the school, I was ready to go back to the combat. I feel the exact same way about this game. When I was in combat, I wanted the next story moment. When I was in a story moment, I was ready to get on with the fight. Just a really great job of making everything engaging from beginning to end. And the story is just so fucking good. There's lots of unexpected twists and turns. I never would have guessed where this game ended up towards the end. I've always kind of expected there to be somebody past the Paintress. Like, the Paintress wasn't the end all be all. I was thinking that the Paintress was like a prisoner of sorts, which, if you think about it in like a broader term, she is a prisoner in this world. But I was thinking that there was going to be a bigger bad that was imprisoning her this entire time, which I was off on that. But the story was just so unpredictable from beginning to end. When you get to the end, you're like, God damn, dude, like, I wasn't expecting this to be where the story ended up at. So I'm gonna talk about the characters just really quick, kind of go through them, some of my favorites, and I'll start off with one of my least favorites. And Monaco is not my least favorite character. He's my least favorite player. The character of Monaco, I really love. When he's in combat, I'm not a big fan of him. He basically copies the moves of Nevrons that you kill around the world to give you like a more versatile build. I'm not going to say that his combat isn't fun. It's personally not for me. Also, on the flip side of things, I just found it to be more engaging, and I had a better time with the other characters in combat. So it's not that his combat style is bad or anything like that. It's just I found the other ones to be so much better. In terms of the story, Gustav was one of my favorites. I didn't really find myself too attached to his gameplay style. I definitely preferred some of the other characters. So in terms of just combat, he was one of my least favorites. But again, I love all of these characters individually. He just wasn't, he was definitely a part of my team, don't get me wrong, because up to that point, you don't have a ton of party members, so he kind of had to be there. But I did find him to be not as exciting as some of the other characters. One of my favorite characters in terms of not only just combat, but also her character in general is Ciel. Her combat system deals with applying Foretell and activating Twilight to deal more damage. She's definitely that enjoys just the day-to-day life. She can't be bothered by anything else. She just really wants to be back with her husband and her child. When I tell you, when you find out her backstory in this game, heartbreaking. I love the moment where we find out more about her character towards the end of the game. She's just ridden with guilt, and she does a great job of like pretending like she doesn't have that guilt. But we find out that she tried killing herself after she lost her husband, and she didn't know that she was pregnant at the time. So when she tried drowning herself, she ended up killing her unborn child. And Esquier, which is the guy that you fly on and you travel throughout the overworld with. Really love Esquier, by the way. He is the one that saved her and prevented her from drowning. So the point in the story when I find out that is her backstory, I was devastated. And it's a testament to the writers of this game where they are making you care for these characters. And not only, like, you don't find that out towards the end of the game. Like, that is a relationship question that you only find out when trying to swoo her at the very end. So you don't find that out early on whatsoever. So they did a great job early on of making you care for her character, that when that moment happens, it just hits you like a ton of bricks. Now, you can romance either her or Lune in this game. Let me tell you, I decided to romance her and basically got shut down. When you romance one, you cannot romance the other. Her and Verso had some sexual endeavors for sure, because that's who I kind of liked more so than Lune, which I'm not saying Lune is bad, but I really love Sael's character more so in this game. And there's a point where she's just like, look, I'm going to be back with my husband and my child soon. So I'm ready to just do that. And I respect it. I respect that she can't move on from her family. But damn it, I wish I would have gone with Lune. Okay? Like, Verso missed out on both of them if you go for her. And it's real life stuff. If they're in a group, like, definitely one's like, well, you were with her, so I'm not going to be with you, kind of thing. And you can still experience some of the storyline, the romantic things that happen between both of those characters. But at the end, it's more of a, yeah, this is just kind of platonic, okay? And then speaking of Lune, she's your healer. She deals with elemental attacks to generate stains to deal more damage. And then once you get to the later portion of the game is really when her character excels, because you can do elemental trick to generate all the stains at once. I mean, it's random, of course, but then you can do Genesis and just wreck folks with that shit. And her character really takes off once you get the Pictos to do greater than 10,000 damage. It just excels. I could not take her out of my team. It was mainly Lune, CL, and then Mael that were my three main, and then I would throw Verso in there, just kind of level them up in between. But I was the 3-girl squad for 75% of this game. And then Verso, he has like the ranking system being based on not being hit or parrying. There was a point where he would deal insane amounts of damage if you could build up that ranking system. I not only liked his character in combat, but more so out of combat, because we become him throughout the rest of the journey. And he's always like this mysterious, kind of holding something back style of character. But I just really loved his personality in the game, because I would always go with the responses of trying to be funny and trying to kind of break the tension and bring some levity to all these situations. So that was kind of the Verso that I went with more so, and I just felt like it worked a lot. But at times that does kind of make the game a little cheaper. So I would always bring up some levity and then being like, no, you're right. Like, that sucks kind of moment. So I would kind of go back and forth with his character with those responses in those interactions with other characters. And I thought it worked really well for his character. Mael, the fucking goat, okay? I never had a moment where she was not on my team. She absolutely fucking devastates people. And to me, she was my favorite character in the game. And to really talk about her, I really have to talk about the ending to this game. She's just one of those characters that you can't help yourself but root for. She's just endearing. She's innocent. She's this type of character that's willing to fight for her family, but she's also kind of lost in this world. And she even mentions that several times throughout the story, that she didn't really want to come, but she also wants to see the rest of this world. And the relationship with her and Gustav is obviously peak, but like her relationship with Verso past that point, like they get kind of attached to the hip, so to speak. And that's because they are brother and sister, come to find out. But I just loved every moment with Mael. I think they did their best work with her as a character. And then combat wise, she is just OP. You absolutely wreck folks. When you get towards the end of the game where you're going to fight Renoir, I was legitimately killing 3 enemies at one time with one hit with her character. I was just fucking wrecking shit throughout those biomes. But Mael is a fucking tragic tale. The whole story is based on one person dealing with grief and that vicious cycle of grief and breaking it. Verso was killed in a fire trying to save his sister Alicia, who is Mael. Their mother created the canvas as a way to deal with that grief of losing her son. Mael, or Alicia, was scarred permanently. She ended up having her vocal cords damaged during the fire, so she's disfigured and she can no longer speak. So she has this emotional weight on her where she wants to be normal again. But then you also have her mom, who is trying to grieve the loss of her son. Then you have Renoir, who is the main antagonist of the story. And I put air quotes around that because I don't really see him as an antagonist. He's just ready for their family to move on. He's ready for them to put all of this behind them so they can move forward as a family and put it into the canvas. That's what he is there for. That's why he is the antagonist to the storyline. He wants them to go back to reality, to the real world, and become a family once again and move forward. He's tired of playing these charades, these make-believe people in this world. He's ready to move on. And Clea, who is Mael's sister, is the one that sent her into the painting to convince her mom to come back to reality. But Mael ends up losing like all of her memories and she basically gets reborn. So there is this cycle of grief that happens when Mael realizes that Verso is her brother. When she realizes that Renoir wants to destroy everything, they've taken out the Paintress, and when they're all celebrating and Renoir just gomages everybody, and that's when she realizes that she wants to stop Renoir and bring everybody back. So she stays in the canvas to kill Renoir. And what's so tragic about her story is she, for better or for worse, becomes this tragic antagonist in the story. She basically turns evil towards the end. She's so hell-bent on keeping the canvas and living there with her friends that she has grown to love and care for throughout the adventure. And she doesn't want to leave Verso. She misses him dearly, and she doesn't want to go back to the real world because there she's disfigured. She can't speak. She doesn't have Verso. She doesn't have the friends, and she's not this super powerful person in the real world. So she wants to kill Renoir and stay in this canvas forever. And she becomes the person that she wanted to kill all along. She becomes the Paintress. And you have to make the choice of giving in to her and staying in that world with Mael and never breaking that cycle of grief, or killing your favorite character in the game, killing your sister and ending it all so that she can go back to the real world and live a real life, not just a fake one in this canvas. And that ending is so fucking heartbreaking. I was not expecting any of that to happen. And the worst part is they make you fucking choose which one you want. They make you choose whether you kill Mael or save her. I chose to kill Mael, and it was hard to do that, but I'll give you the reasons why. Mael is becoming the Paintress. She is continuing that cycle of grief. The reason for going through everything was to break that cycle. So I felt like personally, in order to get the satisfying conclusion of the story, I had to kill Mael and break that cycle of grief and end it, send her back to the real world. And it was fucking devastating. I sat on that decision for like 10, 15 minutes. Like, I don't want to kill her. I don't want to kill these characters because I love these characters so fucking much. Guys, it is fucking crazy that the writers of this game make you love these characters and then they make you kill them, gomage them. And it was a heartbreaking ending, and it just solidified and made me love the ending even more, with the fact that you are not only just saying goodbye to these characters, it's not a happy ending for you as a gamer because you are killing off these characters that you have spent 50 plus hours with, and now you're in charge with killing them all. So I thought the ending was absolutely fucking incredible, and I thought they had some really big balls to do certain things in this storyline with killing Gustav and then making you choose your ending and making you choose whether you are going to kill. Because I think that was the right choice. Honestly, I think killing her is what the developers wanted. I think that's their true ending. And you can choose whichever one you want for sure, but to actually choose it, to choose to kill those characters that you have grown to love and be the reason for it was awesome. It was devastating. It was a bunch of different emotions. I know when I finished this game, I had texted Chris and I was like, dude, I'm devastated. I am depressed. I'm erect. I'm diamond status. I am every emotion in the book because this game is unlike any other game that I've ever played. And it is truly a game worth playing, not only for the combat, but the story is great too. And it's as advertised. It's as good as I hoped it would be, even better. I didn't think that it would be a top 10 game all time for me, but here we are, which I'm not ready to say where it falls in that top 10. I still think it's too soon since I played it to really give it a fair spot, but it's in the top 10 somewhere because this game was able to tap into emotions that I haven't really tapped into with any other game previously. So like I said, guys, I wouldn't mind diving into the story and the characters a little bit more in a separate episode down the road, but just my overall thoughts on Expedition 33, fucking love it. It's a 10 out of 10 game for me. I don't have many issues with the game in general. The ones that I do have are not a deal breaker for me. There was a moment here that I just absolutely disliked or wish they would have done differently. Story, combat, it's fucking perfect to me. And it's crazy to get a 10 out of 10 game when you have, like, what was it, like 30 developers on this game. It's insane because you could have hundreds of developers on some of these AAA games and they don't come near to the quality of game that we got here. But guys, let me know down in the comments below of how you feel about Expedition 33. Who are your favorite characters? Who was your main party? Your favorite moments? Let me know down below. And I really appreciate y'all joining me for this review. Been really looking forward to this for a long time. Like I said, 46 hours into this game. And I'll never experience that ever again. Just the one time, you know? So if you have any doubts of playing this game, even after listening to this, or if you've played it and you didn't understand it, or give it a fair shake, go back, try it, go back, play it for the first time, whatever the case is. I truly think this is one of the best games of all time. Is it the greatest? Probably not. But it's definitely going to be one of my favorite games of all time for sure. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I appreciate y'all. I will catch y'all next time on the next episode. Laters.